I would like to take this opportunity to extend a welcome to our resource person, Ms. Rashi Pandey, for the online faculty development program. It's a moment of great privilege and honor for me to introduce our resource person and our alumna, Ms. Rashi Pandey. So Rashi Pandey graduated in Electronics and Instrumentation Engineering from SRM University, Chennai, and she got a silver medal, and obtained his master's in microelectronics, BITS Pilani, Goa. Currently, she is working as an SOC design engineer at Intel, Bangalore. His major interest includes MEMS, VLSI, and VHDL. So now I request Rashi Pandey to take over the session. Rashi?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for the introduction.
Rashi, your face is very dark. Can you switch on the light? Can we see your face properly?
Okay. Actually, I've already turned on. Fine, ma'am. I'll just try.
Yeah.
This seems fine, ma'am.
Yeah, this is good.
Okay. I can need to switch on some light. Okay, this is okay, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. So, thank you, ma'am, for the introduction, and good morning to all the attendees. So this is my honor to come here again and share my thoughts on one of the papers that I've recently published. So I would like to start with the introduction part. That is, what is the flow basically? So when we start for the chip building and when we start for the designing to be implemented into hardware layouts, we start with a very basic understanding of how our the tool should work, so that we have our layout as as desired. So for in field of VLSI, many things matter, but one of them being the computation time and the power utilization, because something out of the resources that we need for long run is the reduced power utilization, because your whole chip should not acquire so much power that it becomes a burden for the system. For example, if you have a processor and it has adders and subtractors, your adder and subtractors and other multiple logical calculation part should not take power such that your processor becomes a burden to your processor. So one of the things that we keep in mind is the reduced power utilization. And obviously, when you go through all the stages of your computation part, the time taken should be minimum. So hence, we name it as the minimum computation time and reduced power utilization. In the coming slides, you'll see I've implemented a Ladner-Fisher adder, which is starting from the scratch, designing from the scratch, as in knowing what we need in the layout, and to proceed with the in a way of VHDL, which is basically a descriptive language. So yeah. Adder could be a simple adder like the ones which you use in digital design. We all have studied in our first years and second years. Digital design, suppose for example, the ripple carry adders and carry forward adders, all these kind of adders. But when you come into a field of VLSI and you see processors which goes up to 16 bits, 64 bits and more. So what happens? You need something that is parallel computing. And by parallel computing, I mean the dependence of the current stage over the previous stage. So for example, the one which we have is a Ladner-Fisher adder, and it is a 16-bit adder which with use of parallel computing. So parallel computing, as I told in layman language, is the non-dependence of current stage over the last presiding stage. So I've told you about the ripple carry adders, and these adders are multiply used in a network, in our processor architecture, because these could even be used as multipliers. Placing them in a multiple format, these could be used as multipliers, and they have their own sequences. So it is only fair and it's only wise to use a reduced amount of computation, so that these, when we move on to a further bigger architecture, these are not a burden to our design. So a little bit introduction about what technology I've used. When you go into VLSI, we have as node technology. So the one which I've implemented is a 90 nanometer CMOS technology. The adder is of 16-bit, and what I've implemented in the paper is basically the power, which is 0.0187 watts, and the area cell cover, that is the logical gates acquiring the die size, is 26%. Further work we can do on this paper to reduce power and even to reduce area, with a little bit of trade-off here and there. So I would introduce you the tools to Genus, Innovus, NC Launch. These are from Cadence, and we can use any other vendors, even Synopsys. To start with the topology, so that like everyone understands what is basically a tree adder. As you can see on my left side, this is a 4-bit carry ahead adder. So we have the sum bit and we have the Cin. So what happens at S1 stage is that your the total S1 that is coming for the bit B depends on your C0. So this not only includes your increases your computation time, but it also has an dependence over your the last stage. This goes on even for S2 and similarly for S3. When finally these computations are over, then you get your final bit as C3. Whereas to have this topology, we can follow it in smaller bits architecture. Like this is not an issue for us if we go for 8-bit architectures or more. But then when you go for architectures that require multiple sequence of adders, you have to make it more of optimization. So for that, we have topology as tree adders. So on my right side, as you can see, this is a 16-bit Ladner-Fisher tree adder. So all these purple dots that you can see on my slide, these are all computing parallelly. Their dependence is not on their last stage. And the first stage which you see, I will introduce you to your the stages that we have. There are basically 3 stages in tree adders. So the second stage that you're seeing, the purple dots which are on the alternating lines, as you can see, so that's pre-computation. So these bits are already ready with their output even before the third stage occurs. So there is no waiting time, and hence this is parallel computing. As I told that I'll be moving forward to stages in tree adders. So the tree adders, since they perform parallel computing, these are also called as parallel prefix adder. The sum is basically a result of 3-stage computation, that is pre-computation, prefix, and post-computation. So what happens in pre-computation is it already has an intermediate carry signals that are coming through pair of your white and the purple dots that I presented you in the last slide. These are nothing. These are called as propagate and generate pairs. To go into layman language, these generate and propagate pairs are nothing but an XOR and an AND gate. But when they are put into a sequence, they form a bigger logical gate. So what happens here is, so to drop you a hint, in my paper, what I've done is these propagate and generate pairs don't value, in the case of approximate adders, they don't affect much of our output, the final result. So a trade-off which we can perform with respect to approximation is that we can remove some of these pairs in the intermediate levels when not needed. But that is a very long iterative process, and the approximation percentage should be not much as to affect your coming stages of the computation of the large architecture that you're working on. So the carry propagation signal out of the propagation and the generation signal is basically comprising of the logical gate that is A XOR BI, where your A and B are your input bits coming into your architecture. And this occurs only, and the generation occurs only when both your signals are active. So these are already presented even before the second stage starts. The next stage is the prefix stage. Prefix stage is a bit more complex, and this is where your VHDL, or I should say the descriptive language, comes handy. If you are a bit prepared with how you want your design to be, this is where you implement these cells, the propagate and the generate cells. So these are the logical equations for that. And your I and I plus 1. So I is your current stage and I plus 1 is the next coming stage, which you have already the answer to before starting the final computation. So the last computation that involves is the final calculation of the sum and the carry bit. So The carry is grouped from all the bits and reaches the end using one last adder, where P is the propagate signal and C is the last carry obtained from the architecture, which could be seen from the final equation. So this P, which you see here, P of I plus 1, is the last propagate signal that you have received in your stage, as I've shown you in the topology diagram. And Ci is also the latest result we have for a carry signal, which is computed in the prefix stage. So for what I have represented to you right now is how you want this architecture on my right to work. You should understand like what are these stages, and this is just an example of a 16-bit adder. Even when you go into depth, you can find there are other types of 16-bit adders such as Cogstone, Brent-Cuck, and these are one way or the other a mix and match of the adders that are actually present. So one way to see this as it is a very fast type of computation for your sum and carry when you look into a bigger architecture. But the catch here is that you can go for a particular type of adder when you know what is your main criteria. In my example, I have took Ladner-Fisher adder. This is for reduced area size. This might not be your case if you have a lot of die size prepared for your processor. You can even go for Cogstone, which is a more complex adder than this, but there is a catch. Like it has multiple cells and it has it has more area than Ladner-Fisher adder, but the power consumed there is lesser than the one that I have implemented here. So based on your requirement, you can go from one tree adder to other depending upon your trade-offs that you've chosen for your implementation. Moving on to the ASIC flow. So when I entered into this industry and this project when I was working on, one thing that you have in mind is at some point of time we all can code. Like we can code even for the software engineering side. We can code for the hardware engineering side. But the point that should be kept in mind is what makes us different from the rest. The thing is that your design should be in such an optimized way that you can always have a solution to implement it. And one of the ways when you come into hardware industry is that you have to follow a type of flow. So the technology has improvised itself so much that you can implement it in multiple ways, but the flow remains the same. That is the stages that your descriptive language code goes through remains the same. And the different companies in the industry that we have currently, you name it, like Intel, Nvidia, Qualcomm, any of these. So AMD, whatever these companies are, the tool or the reason why they are anyway ahead of their other competitor company is because they have more optimized flow. So this is the one thing that the companies in the industry are currently working on, so that the final result of their desired layout comes out to be optimized. And that is why they have all these engineers working on this flow day and night. So put it as a beginner, I would say that this is one of the type of ASIC flow. And in general, at academic level, we call it as RTL to GDS2. So RTL is register transistor level logic and GDS is graphic design systems. Depending on your tool, you have different, you have different stages related, and the stages could be named one or the other, but the function remains same. So the main aim of this flow is that when you have written your design code, you have final GDS2 file, which if you look, you'll be surprised because GDS2 file is nothing but a binary file with ones and zeros. Only a person who belongs to this industry or has an access to tool can understand your file which is generated after this flow. And before the fabrication of your ICs, GDS2 file is the one that is sent to the fab to implement your die, to implement your chip. Again, to mention the technology, if at all there are people who are interested in implementing the layouts and implementing the chip, the technology I've used is 90 nanometer CMOS, and tools I've used here is mainly NC Launch, Genus, Innovus, all from Cadence. At a student level, Cadence is the one vendor that provides a lot of tools basically for learning purpose. When you come into industry, it's a whole level of competition among Cadence, Synopsys, and other tools. but I would recommend at admit level to go for cadence. So what happens is, like as I told, that all of us, when we can try, we can code. There's not an issue about it. Like we can try our best and we can learn coding. What is good, like what is needed and what is desired. But the thing is that there is one step of validation that your code is working fine. Like the one step which is needed such that it is your code is working fine and it can perform functionality. So there are two sides of it. There is functionality and that is logical functioning. Functionality is the one that comes later, but first we should see that your logical functioning is working or not. Your 1 plus 1 is 2 or not, in putting it in basic language. So as you can see here, when I've written my Verilog code, I do the functional simulation using the tool as NC Launch. I have the waveforms with me and I give out the input and I see my output is correct or not. So this is one of the waveforms that I have received. It is the inputs are random, but this is how your functional simulation looks like for NC Launch. You see that for every clock bit, when the clock goes higher, the output is presented at which clock you get your output. Is the clock syncing correctly? The time period is enough for that the results are present at the next clock, or do they require more time? So these are what comes under your logical computation. Moving on, when you are done with your NC launch simulation, at the end of it, there is one file generated called as netlist. So for the beginners, I would say netlist is something that you have your the logic gates that you have, put it into a file. The netlist is putting your code into logical gates and then giving your final output. So that is one thing called as netlist. And the netlist could be used in a next stages. It acts as output for the simulation, but input for further steps. So in the case of Genus, this is a tool again by Cadence, such that you have your netlist, you have to place your logical gates. The thing is that netlist is tool based. So netlist is your output, but there should be something that validates that yes, your functioning is fine. So the last stage was about logical functionality, but this is about your whole code, your whole design that you desire is working functionally. So when you have netlist prepared with you and when you have inputs again to your code and when you run the simulation, you can see there are some delays. That is, at one clock high, you might not get the output at the similar clock bit high. You can have delays. You can have output at your negative edge or a little bit before negative or positive edge. So this is because you have your logic gates implemented now. So just before they were just normal, a group of inputs, but now they are proper logical gates. And depending upon the tool, the library for the gates they have chosen, you will have the timings. So what we call this as post-synthesis timing. To make you understand about synthesis, the full formation of your normal logical gates, your normal code of RTL, into the putting it into physical logical gates in synthesis. So after synthesis, what we have is netlist. And in that netlist, when you run the simulations again, you can see delays. So these are post-synthesis delay. So yeah, so though that were the simulations that we have performed, now the main task of our, what should I say, the whole process is that you see how are the reports generated and what are the areas that we can work on. So while going on to the scripting language and all those windows, you will see that there are reports generated. And in my case, like for Genus, you have all these kinds of report prepared already after the run, such as area, timing, power, and gates. So you might think that gate report and area reports are similar, but to make you understand, I would say that when the chip has not been implemented yet, the area is the total die size that you will be using, and gates is the area that where the logical functionalities, or I should say the gates, are placed out of the whole area. So area will always be greater than the gate reports. And report for gating is important because you need to know what are the library logic gates they are using, the tool is using. Because when you go into market and we go in for one vendor, you might not have similar kind of gates or similar kind of libraries. So it is advised to follow one vendor throughout the flow, because that is how they have implemented their flow, and that is how you get an optimized PPA, that is performance, power and area. Yeah, so these are further example of timing reports and area reports. This is one of the examples that I had in my tool, like when I run my simulations. So similarly, you can have for your design. So what I've presented till now is other slides, and what is it basically? Like how do you go from implementing your design? But when it comes to a physical layout, you cannot just get your way by implementing in a normal transistor level coding, or just going through the tool and just seeing the simulations. This just till now what we have seen here is that your design is validated functionally and logically, but there is no guarantee or proof that your design will be an optimized one. Like a person sitting next to me can implement this same design and we can have the simulations working and all. But why would someone choose my design over his or her? That is the catch here. So for going through that, we have physical layout. So the final output of a front end design or circuit design or logical design is a netlist. So whatever we have performed right now is a work done by the front end team, like the logical optimization, your representation of the register transistor level. All this is a part of a front end team. The netlist contains the logical functionality of a chip. This netlist could be viewed as a plethora of instances with interconnections between them based on the functionality to implement. This connectivity information in a netlist is a layer of extraction of the hardware, which must be converted to a physically realizable format. So that is the bottom line, right? Like we can implement as much netlist as we want. We can put it into a different form of. There is always a multiple type of ways we can write a particular logic. But the point is that we are able to format into a physical entity. So that is manufacturer. The Innovus tool is to carry out physical design and finally generating a GDS2 file. So the physical layout is the one where your whole optimizations are they are taking place. And the final outcome of this tool is a GDS2 file, which I've already introduced you as binary file. So that is the file which companies do not disclose, and they send out to the FAM immediately after they have performed all kind of optimizations that one would want. So, what is optimization? Like, what is the point where we can, as an engineer, as a designer, what are the rights or what are our perks that we can help in designing the chip? So the designing steps are, the first is to import design and library files as required. So what happens here is you can have multiple designs. Suppose, to put in a normal language, I want to implement an AND gate, but I have some constraints. Constraints as in, I don't want my first input to reach before my second input. So these are what forms as library files, or I should put it as constraint. So Synopsys has this file as SDC, that is Synopsys Design Constraint File. So like this, you have multiple files from multiple vendors, and to put it as an input, we call it as library files. The second step is to build layout area, floor plan, dimensions. So as an engineer, as a designer, you have the I should not say intuition, but the experience to decide on what build layout you should go for. Like if this is a design with multiple gates, if this is a design with multiple adders, so what should be the size of your layout area? So that comes with experience. And this process, as I told, is an iterative process. You can never go with your flow and you can, generate the final file and just say, okay, I'm done with my design. It is a very iterative process. You have to go through multiple steps. one thing may work, one thing may not work. You think that you optimize it a very nice way, but it might not occur that way. So the third step is to place standard cells from the design. That is the percent core utilization. Okay. So what happens is, like when you are into designing, you have your hardware, what we call it as IPs. Okay. And then in the center of it, you have your wiring. So it is with the experience, the designer comes to know that what should be the floor plan, how should be the hardware be placed in such an optimized way that you don't have that congestion. And by congestion, I mean a single place on the chip where there is a lot of overlaps of cells. We should never encourage congestion because the outcome of congestion is a very heated part of that. Like for example, you know that where your battery or wherever in your cell phone or in other electronic appliances, you face the heat. So what is causing that heat is one of the reasons could be congestion. The parts that are supposed to be separated from each other, that should be distant, are placed very near, and that is what leads to breakdown of in this case chips, the heating part. So and the final step is to route the nanoroute and checks for DRC errors using the ANOVAs. So as I told before, there is a lot of understanding and knowledge goes into designing of how the hardware should be placed inside the chip, and that should be interconnected in a very optimized way, because you even don't want the routes to the routing or the wires even to overlap or to be near to each other. There are various effects that are caused by it, which we can learn in depth. But to put it into simple words, we can say that it is designing and it is your knowledge that is valued when you go for into these steps. So then the final netlist is generated, the SDF file and the GDS2 files are generated as the output of the final stage of these steps. And even after your post layout, there are simulations performed to go as to how much is the delay occurring, and are these delay considerable, are these delay affecting your outputs, and that is a whole team present for these kind of checks when you go into the industry. So as you know that even like for example, as you can see here is one of the chips that I've implemented. So this is the layout how it is, and you can see all kinds of wiring here, the red, the green, blue. So what happens here is when you as in one of the stages of design, that is floor planning, you need to place your power straps. So the yellow and the blue, the vertical ones that you see on my screen are basically the power strips. It is our knowledge and experience how we place these cells in the chip in such a way that you don't have overcrowded at one place and all the cells coming in that vicinity are given power supply. At the same time, you must make sure that you have ground supplies. So all these are the things that comes under your floor planning. So I'm sorry. So this is just not a one-time thing that you put it into. Like even if you go to this tool is so smart that it can come out with a GDS2 file, but nowhere it could be near your constraints or it could be near your optimized values. So that is how you need the knowledge for designing. Also on the exterior parts, extreme most part of this layout, you can see the pins are coming out. So this is an optional step, but we have heard about ESD, right? So input, like to make you understand, we don't want the chip to be working in such a way that some point of time the person can get shock or you have leakages in your chip or the layout. So to avoid that, you go for the pin placements, the pins that you see here in the protruding part of the layout. So these are the pins that you place. Whenever you go into, so this is what I wanted to show, like in the physical layout, how it looks basically. If we go into the depth of this chip, you will see there are very teeny tiny logic gates of AND or XOR. So this is a top view, as we say in our language. This is a top view, extracted view of the layout that you have prepared. When you have finalized your design, that okay, my chips are placed here, my chip is like the layout is final, my pins are placed wherever I wanted. So when you have finalized, this is how your upgraded layout looks like. What you see here as in crisscross fashion are the routes which are on the top layer. So yeah, one more thing, when you go for the layouts, it is not like you are placing routes at one level. There are multiple levels depending upon your constraints. You go for it can go for M0 as the most lowest value to M11 or M15 as your highest layer. In our language, we call it as HPML, highest permitted metallic layer. So these are all the layers that are used to route our design. So till now, what I've presented you is the layout and the chip, how it is designed. So I can the point here is that your whole optimization, your whole procedure that you have followed is because you need an optimized design. Yeah. Okay. I have questions here. I guess I'll just see. Can you suggest research areas in physical design? Okay, so what happens in so physical design is what should I say, like one of the things that the industry or the all these these companies are running after is PPA, that is performance power area. So you can, like, for example, I've used the area of approximate adders. So approximate adders is the one, like what should I say? Like you have to go into parallel computing. You should be yeah, the point is that you should be aware that okay, fine. Even if my answer is an approximate one, the final computation is not affected by my current answer. So that is how the approximate circuits work. You can even go for multiplier. The one of the like the one which I liked very much was it's also in my future scope. Like people can work on it. It's one of the ideas that I would love to work. So I have implemented a 16-bit adder, and I can use it as a part of multiplier, which is a very basic understanding. Okay, one can put in multiple sequence and multiplies that. And one of the things that you can use your adders and your multiplier is a MAC. So that is one thing where you can use your multiplier in a very smart way, and you can get your outputs. So those one or two things that I have seen, like you can also implement in physical design. So physical design, basically, see, it's not just we can go into all these kind of like all these approximate circuits, I should say. Even when you have analog designs, right? Even when you have RF, all these wireless and all these like in my like last to last day when I was studying for my masters. So I was seeing all these design for wireless communication and your other circuits you have in digital design also. All these what should I say, all these can be prepared into your physical design. These all can be implemented. What you need is a iterative knowledge for this, and the manuals that Cadence and Synopsys provide are very informative. Like sometimes, because it is figuring out for yourself, so even your faculties can be helpful, or maybe they have not tried that yet, but your manual can help you to go a long way. So I would say, like, this is what should I say, as one of the things that you can do physical design. You can go for implementing many circuits, or even the analog design that I mentioned to be implemented in physical design. Okay, so I have okay. So what are the latest research topics in VLSI design? Okay, so VLSI design, there are how should I put it? Like there are multiple things that you study in VLSI, right? You study digital design, you studied reconfigurable computing, and all these things. So for VLSI, I would say that one of the thing which is a booming industry, and I should say which actually is something that require is a lot of what should I say? It's a very valued, knowledgeable area is analog designs. Like we have learned about ADCs, DACs. So that's what come under analog design, and I would say that that is something that requires a lot of what should I say, your knowledge, and that is the best way to represent your skill when you go into analog design. So if at all you have to do for research, I would suggest that analog design is the one that we can aim for. So the next, if we look into power design aspect, which tool would be better? Okay, so this is a very, what should I say, a very relative subject that you've asked, like power design. For this case, suppose I'm implementing my 16-bit adder, right? I can go for this similar architecture, and I can, what should I say, I can have trade-offs with my cell, and the same design can have reduced power. So this is something that is very relative to your design. But for power, if tool-wise, if you're asking me Cadence and Synopsys, so in my company, I'm using Synopsys, but for my academic use, I've used Cadence. And when you like the trade-off is that when you go for a very high bit processor or a very high level of architecture and complex, I should say, you can go for Synopsys. It has more optimized features, and and the GUI and the interface is very user friendly. So Synopsys I would recommend if it's a complex design. But if you are at academic level and you would prefer to teach your students or faculties or in the laboratories to go for these, I would say that you can go for Cadence. Because the manuals are very, I should say, they are very like you can it's very interactive, and a student can itself try hands-on. It's not needed as much of a support, because when I, like, if I tell you my personal experience, my hours were very difficult. Like it's not like you can have your teacher every evening, even after classes and all. So at academic level, I would recommend Cadence. So can you suggest something about reconfigurable architecture in VLSI? Okay, so I want to, but it's not one of my, what should I say, area of supervision. So I would not recommend anything like that. But yeah, what recently I've been to this conference and there were a lot of FPGAs and all, emulation. So if you are very good at coding, look, I'm not like telling you this thing to, but if you're very good at coding and you can implement your designs, I would say that FPGAs are the next big thing. Because if you are into VLSI market, if you're looking at the companies, FPGAs are the next big thing. Because to put it into simple words, it is a part of emulation, right? Like I prepared a chip. Now, how I can be sure that if I put it into fab and I produce a million of this will be worth it. Like this is working. So the single chip or multiple chips at customer level for the feedback, I use it as in emulation process, and we use FPGAs for that, right? So I would say that you can go into FPGAs, you can go into FPGA designing, multiple bit structure, multiple bit architectures you can use. So I would recommend that as one of the areas. Uh, okay. Uh, which power minimization technique is best for sub-threshold circuit? Okay. Which power minimization technique is best for sub-threshold circuits? Okay. For the sub-threshold circuits, the main area that we face, like the main issue that I have seen, like is the leakage. So what happens in the sub-threshold circuits? You have your power leakage in your design. So what happens here is, like, you have lots of power loss because in the leakage. So I would suggest that one can work on the leakage, and then maybe you can go for power minimization. So it's one of the, and in general, if you're looking at power minimization, I would say to reduce the area, to reduce your logic gate area. And see, that is where your vendor comes in handy, because in designer doesn't have an access to the library. Like one vendor is using logic gates for one thing, and one vendor is using suppose AND gate similarly. But the power taken up by one is could be less or more than the other. See, so that's comparative. So this is when your vendor comes in handy, how it is taken. And overall, when you see your, suppose this design that I am showing you on my slide could be from any tool, but now it is up to me, how am I able to optimize it? Because the tool can help only at one certain point of time. It is mainly how you're providing your floor plan and the power straps. So yeah, that is one of the things that I would say for power minimization. And Yeah, so I was on my last slide. I'll just move forward. So yeah, as I told you guys about the different architectures and this thing, I'll just shut this one. Yeah. So what we can do for future scope is we can use the same adder even for in multipliers or logarithm multipliers. Like if I want to suggest someone to perform on physical design, I would say that one can use these adders and can implement in Vedic multipliers because it has been and you can go to all these publications and you can see that the comparative analysis of different multipliers and the computation time of Vedic multiply has actually been very less comparative to others. So it's only wise to use that architecture and implement adders in the Vedic multiplier and use it for computation. So like this, you can move forward with that. And as I told you, even Mac is there. So even you can try with that. And yeah, so basically you should know like what trade-off you want to choose over other. So in my design, I've chosen power as one of my trade-offs. So yeah, so thank you all for listening. And if we have any questions, I'm open for that.
Participants, if there's any question, you can either put it in the chat box or you can ask directly.
Okay, so I have a new question here. What is meant by quantum dot cellular automata? Okay, so this is something I'll be frank and I've not heard before. So maybe physicists can help you in this. Physical, I don't know about this.
Ma'am, this is Papanasan from meeting. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Can you please share the paper you bought? 1 second. The multiple design
Yeah.
you shared something. Yeah. Can you share your paper?
Yeah, sure.
Can you share?
I can. Yeah. So I have my IEEE paper. You want me to share my paper on screen right now?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. I'll just try to share. I have my paper with me.
And if possible, you could share whatever public work you have done in the multiplier area. Do you have work in a single PPT?
Okay. So what happens here is like there are multiple tabs open. Is it fine? Like if I send you like through MAM or on mail, is that fine? I'll send you my paper link and all.
Yeah, fine. If you are able to show some papers, the slides, we could note it down. Then later you could send the full papers. Also.
Okay. 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 So I'll start that.
Feedback photo.
If you're able to view it,
Hello.
yeah. Are you able to view it?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is one of the conferences that I presented, like ICCA.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll put my mail ID over here.
This is your old mail address. This is your current post.
I'm Yeah, so I've given my mail ID. You can contact me for any queries.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Any other doubts? Any other queries?
No, ma'am. I said no. Thank you.
Okay.
Rashi, there is one more question.
Yeah, okay. Is it on in the chat box? Can I
Yes,
know
yes.
application of approximate in okay. Video encoding. Okay, so image processing is one of the area obviously where we can use. That depends, like on what level you want to use your approximate circuits. So I just hear noise sometimes. Could you please mute who's not speaking? Yeah, thank you. So for video encoding, what happens here is basically you want to use these multipliers in pixeling, right? You have to improvise on pixels. That's where I guess you can use your multipliers here. So to go into that research, I would say that it depends on the bit size that you're using for a video encoding. So I would suggest that you research on that. You read, you collect literature on what bit size is the one that is affecting, and maybe then you can use multipliers there. Um, but as far as I've experienced, these are the ones that could be used in processing architectures mainly, the approximate adders that I'm talking about. And yeah, so maybe that's where you can use those. I don't have much info about that because I've mainly used in data processing these things, right? These could be implemented in that. So yeah. Yeah, and to refer, I would suggest for VLSI that you can go for 2-3 books that are, very much like a Bible to VLSI. And one of them is Veste, Neil Veste, and the other one is Kang. So anything in detail for VLSI starting, you can visit Veste, but you might feel that in the beginning that it is a little bit more of abrupt, or I should say in top view, that it is not helping you to study in detail. You can always reach out to Kang, and using Kang, you can simultaneously go through Veste concepts. So even now, actually, the thing about this Veste book is that it is very latest to the industry. Even with the technology being so fast forward, this has been able to keep up with the new technology and the trend. So I would suggest Veste, and but also you need Kang because you should always be thorough with the basics. So I would suggest these two as one of the main authors for reading and to in research in VLSI field. All these are the papers that I have referred. All these people have worked on approximate architectures, and even some of them have worked very finely in that. So yeah, and one of the things that you can always implement in physical design is the processor RISC and CISC architecture. You can read it in detail, and that is also the one like one of you guys asked me like area of physical design, like what all we can do research. So those are the processors, because it is a very tricky task to implement these processors on your RTL level and move forward with implementing. So yeah, that's what. So I have a question here. Is it behavioral alone or synthesizable one? And what is the backend software used? Okay, so this is a synthesizable one to answer your first part. And what is the backend software used? Okay, I don't like backend. As I told, I've used for this paper, I've used Cadence, the 90 nanometer technology, and what the for the final file that is GDS2 that is to be generated, in your GUI, you will have options, you will have features to finally generate your GDS2 file, OSS file, as they say for Cadence. So that will be all for that flow. I guess I answered your question. That is the software that I use. So yeah, anything else? Okay, Cadence, which version? Okay, so for Cadence, see, that depends what license you can get. It's not like everyone can have access to all features with Cadence and all. So you should see, like, if you are as a student, you should see at what student level version you can get. And it doesn't have all the features. Like, as I told you in my file, in my presentation, that you have DRC errors also. So you need that is basically design rule checkers. So some versions have that, some have QRCs, the ones to check your leakage and the capacitance load of your nets. So some versions have that, some don't. So it basically like which part of yeah, industry you're belonging. You're a student, you are university teacher. So yeah, that's what mainly. But to go for Cadence, like the technology I've used is 80 nanometer. In the same tool, you can go for 180 nanometer also. You have options there. But to keep in mind that with 180 nanometer and for 90 nanometer, your PPA will differ. So yeah.
Ma'am, shall we wind, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I would like to thank Rashi for taking out time from her busy schedule and enlightening us with the knowledge in her recent research work and VLSI design. I hope all the participants were benefited. Thank you, Rashi, for your wonderful
Thank you,
session.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, HOD, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rashi, for your time. And participants can, if you've got any doubts, you can post it to me. I will forward it to her. And kindly fill up the feedback form, participants. And also, the next session will start at 2 o'clock. Please be on time. It is a non-technical session. It will close very quickly. Maybe it will be for a very short time. I request you all to be on time at 2 o'clock. Please join us by 2 o'clock and fill up the feedback form. Thank you, Rashi, once again. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
taking
ma'am.
time. Thank you so
Sure,
much.
ma'am. Sure,
Yeah,
sure,
I will
ma'am.
keep in touch with you. Okay.
Yeah, okay, ma'am. Thank you. Good
Thank
afternoon,
you,
ma'am.
Asita, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank